Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest narration in the web series The Nature of Predators Book 2. If you're new to this series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 42. Memory Transcription Subject Taylor Trench, Human Colonist. Date, Standardized Human Time, July 28, 2160. If Gress could track my implant in an uncharted desert using his police contacts, why had Mofani's translator been traceable for so long? Either Underscales knew how to evade security, or the sadistic Rescott was somewhere he had a buffer between himself and the eyes in the sky. The cavern, where Teller's settlers had lived exclusively for years, wasn't hidden, according to my Krev friend's reluctant offerings. I knew that he could get into trouble for providing too many details, but the thought unsettled me. I'd been spending more time trying to analyze the world around me, rather than let my emotions and impulses get the best of me, and I stumbled on a worrying conclusion. The consortium must have been able to track our movements for years through those devices. It was likely assumption that the Jaslip enclaves had been under surveillance as well. They'd outright said that they had memory checkpoints. I supposed it wasn't that damning if it was used solely for security purposes. But that didn't stop my skin from crawling at the idea. The intended use was fading us now, given how long it had taken to find Mofani, locked on a single world. The pink avian couldn't have gotten off planet without a spaceship launch being detected, so that meant that he had to be far enough underground that it blocked signals. That must be why the Trumbull were combing the globe with ground-penetrating radar, looking for hidden refuge. But how could someone have entrenched a hideout that deep into Tellus without being noticed? Unless it was before we left the cavern for the surface. Were they planning to tunnel up into our underground homes? Is that a crazy idea? Crap, it's easier to let other people come up with its theories. My thoughts continued to spin as we loaded onto a shuttle, with Radai herding us in with a special team. His honor-bound culture made it a necessity to give me the chance to seek vengeance on the bastard who wronged me. I didn't want to get sucked back, just thinking about hurting those who inflicted pain upon me. Gress told me there were other ways of coping with the intrusive thoughts that haunted me, and left me bitter over what had been taken from me. Changing my entire persona wasn't easy, especially when I felt like I had nothing but hatred. Nothing except the Krev who warmed my heart to keep me from falling back into old habits and fading to be a better person again. My exchange partner was also causing me to reconsider things about myself that I denied for a long time. Quana settled next to me on the shuttle, binocular eyes seeming kinder. How do you feel now that we have a leader, Mofani? I can't say my feelings control me. I think I want to protect Tellus. He's a threat to our safety. He could come after me, you, or any of us, if he's out there. He has the skills to kill people, I grunted. The Jaslip playfully swatted me with a tail. So do you, Taylor Trench. You're not helpless, and unlike Mofani, you have people on your side. Whatever differences we have, I came here just to help humans. I know. I really am grateful to finally have anyone care about me. I've forgotten who myself is to even try to be true to it. I never could be me in the caverns. It's not easy to find out who you are and make it who you want to be. I know what it's like to feel hatred for your oppressors. Connor's pupils darted between Gress and Radai before returning to me. I saw how you lived in that burrow. The air was musty. It seemed to suck my soul a little with each breath that passed through my nostrils. You were cramped down there for 24 years. It wasn't just me. I'm the one that lost their head about it and couldn't accept it. Wasn't there literally a strike? You weren't the lone colonist that couldn't accept their lot. Spirits. Charisse mentioned that she cried beneath her mask when she first took a security role and went up, felt and saw the sun. It was an unreachable goal, made tangible. Charisse always kept her cool and kept me from going off the deep end. I don't know how she did it. Connor's whiskers twitched. Neither do I. Smell is a lot more important of a sense to Jaslips, granted. But I couldn't live in a cave, like you and your earliest ancestors did. I'd feel the same way about fresh breeze and scents on the wind, that you do sunlight and running around. I'm glad for your acute nose, Quana. Only a Jaslip could have found me that fast in the godforsaken desert. You can pick up my scent from miles away, and, fortunately for me, how dare you, I scoffed. You reek, not to mention I can smell your pheromones whenever you're around Gress. What? The eavesdropping Krev and I blurted out at the same time. The jaslip cackled. Don't ask questions you don't want answers to. Gress turned away from where he'd been catching up with Charisse. I could feel my cheeks turning red, which I imagined would only add to the adorable primate effect. The helmet had never been thrown on faster, in the futile hopes of disguising my embarrassment. To my relief, the aircraft landed on a specific patch of sandy rock, on the opposite side of Tellus's circumference. I all but sprinted out of the shuttle as it touched down, relieved to be away from the awkward moment the jaslip put me in. There wasn't much that we knew about what Radai had learned, but I'd rather be hunting my abductor than confronting that comment's implications. Quana slid into a back-mounted gun's harness, over her bulletproof vest. My eyes studied the objective on the HUD, spotting it listed hundreds of meters underground. My theory wasn't wrong. Perhaps this is some kind of Black Ops Krev infrastructure. That explains how the underscale would know about its presence. General Radai stalked out into the sandy environment, never letting me out of his sight. Listen up! The Consortium sent mapping drones deep underground to scour for any potential activity. We've encountered an unknown facility located far below the ground, which appears to be old and decaying. This is the best option Mafani has to hide away. We must anticipate armed resistance. We can't determine if he's alone. Sir, I ventured, who would have built an underground complex on Tellus? It sounds like it's older than the Ark colonists' presence here, so, I don't see a reason. You have the same information I have, Trench. Any reason you think I have those answers? No, sir. Then why don't you head down that nice hole our lasers carved out and find out? With respect, sir, I can't fly. Neither can I. But I know how to put on a fecking harness and jump. I don't think I'm ready to jump that far down and fall like that. I've never seen anything from the Psi up outside a ship. It's no wonder I feel weak on the knees. They did teach us to rappel down, but not from the Psi up. Exactly what I'll be doing, sir. Good! The ropes are setting out there. Get your ass in gear. Or I'll give you a tail in the form of my foot being planted there. That applies to all of you. Move! Check each other's knots before you jump. I don't want to clean your guts off the ground. Gress, Charisse, and Quana tailed behind me as I began tying the loops that make the difference between life and death. The Krev looked a bit uneasy, despite being an arboreal creature. Charisse and Quana, meanwhile, were making light of the long descent. The female human gave the jaslip a light push towards the hole, though far enough back that there was no real danger of her falling. The Arctic carnivore yipped with indignation, circled around the smirking primate, and began tugging at Charisse's pant leg. The white-furred quadruped looked almost like a dog playing tug-of-war. The humor eased my nerves a bit, though I was still apprehensive, just as I'd been on the orbital train that went straight down. This was much worse. Gress turned to check the ropes that I'd tied, though he looked quite distracted. Taylor? Yeah? I managed, clearing my throat. Do you remember what it's like to be loved, or given affection, to have someone that holds you close and tells you that you're going to be okay? No. The last hug or kind word I got before you was my parents, before they put me on that damn ship. The Krev threw his scaly arms around my torso, much tighter than when I confronted him after he told me the story of the jaslip incident. The alien, who I'd once despised and wanted to bash his brains in, felt like a warm blanket of security. Gress was only why I wanted to keep going. I could see it as plain as day. After learning that all of our toiling for decades was for nothing, he kept me from despairing. Right now, I felt a bit less fearful, knowing that he'd save me if anything went wrong, hopping down. I wish I could stay here and soak in the validating embrace and tell him that he was the only person that made my life worth living. My exchange partner retracted his limbs, and I realized I stood there dumbly, motionlessly, and lifelessly. Sorry, I know you don't like being touched. I should have asked, the Krev coughed. I just didn't want you to be afraid. Let's go get Mafani. I nodded like an idiot. Mafani, yeah. He can't get away with what he's done. That's such a stupid fucking thing to say. Snap out of it. Can I pretend that it was someone else under the helmet? With sudden eagerness to plunge to my potential death, I began rappelling down in increments. My boots pressed against the dirt wall, as I tried not to look down at what was below. My mouth felt dry, so I pressed the chin button for water. My gloved hands clung to the rope like my life depended on it. Since the last thing I wanted was free fall such an abyssal distance, Quana looked clumsy, imitating a biped's actions, as she descended next to me. Cherise was taking the fall the fastest of us all, and sent a message into her helmet shouting, "See ya!" in an exhilarated voice. That answered beyond a shadow of a doubt who the thrill-seeker was amongst us. Gress crept down tentatively, and I found myself waiting for him. We had to do this together. It took some time to reach the bottom of the hole, which was ample opportunity for Mfani to see us coming. Thermal cameras hadn't picked up on the rescue, though the metal walls of the structure seemed to be blocking out the portion of the light spectrum. I breathed a silent relief as my boots touched solid ground, and caught Grez to ensure he didn't take a hard landing. The Grev muttered a thanks before trotting ahead to rejoin our squad mates. Special forces were manning the point as they prepared to burst into the mysterious bunker. Rust was visible on the walls, with bits of metal having peeled away. Who would have built a shelter this far down, and this long ago? The consortium itself was only a century old. Maybe it could have rusted in that amount of time. I'm hardly an expert in oxidation. Radai came careening down, grasping the rope with his wings, but just in time to avoid a nasty collision. For a tight bird and capable of flight, he was as fearless of heights as ones that took to the skies. I readied my weapon and waited for our unit to find out what was inside of the structure. They didn't make any sense with the details I had, so I hoped hard evidence we found could shed some light on its origins. The general seemed uncertain over the structure, which confirmed that if it was from the consortium, it wasn't in his knowledge. It was odd to see him joining the field mission, but per Reska culture, disobedience of an order he gave and injury to soldiers under his command mandated a personal response. Their honor system put high-ranking officials in unnecessary danger. Our allies finished cutting the hole in the sheet of metal, tiptoeing inside with guns raised. Many of them were Reskets and Krev, since those species were the most well-suited for military service. I wondered if humans would wind up in the special forces down the line. The avians had to duck through the opening, as they didn't want to compromise the structural integrity. There was no gunfire or indicators of enemy contact on my HUD. Once they entered the strange consortium, I crept forward with my friends, hoping that this was Mufani's hideout. More than revenge, putting the sadistic retard down would help me not look over my shoulder constantly. I wanted to move on from my brush with death. My fingers curled tighter around the gun, remembering how it felt to be paralyzed. Fauna's nostrils twitched, while her tail fronds swayed in confusion. "Whose writing is this? A dead language?" I knelt beside the jester, noticing words written above the crumbling door. My visual translator understood them. When I switched it on, it was a simple exit sign, like we would have seen in any building on Earth. Most peculiarly, the language the writing was identified as was Civkit. My head snapped back like I was slapped, while I tried to digest that factoid. What could it even mean if those fringe grazers had some long-lost dwellings on this world, our world? What was their connection to Tellus, far outside their borders? The Civkit fleet might have come to the system because of whatever this was. The Arkship and the entire consortium weren't outside the Federation's sphere of influence, after all. "Why the feck are we in a Civkit bunker on our planet?" I screeched. Gress and Quana looked equally at a loss, and they didn't respond to my panicked question. The Kreb's amber eyes were a bit watery, perhaps due to his own swelling thoughts. General Radai's primary emotion was alarm, though he ensured that we were seeing was a live stream back to the consortium brass. Tellus wouldn't be safe if this was a place of importance to the Grand Herd. We had to find out what they wanted with our home, now and hundreds of years in the past. I tried to rein in my spiral and consider what my allies might be thinking at the moment. Enemy infrastructure within our own space was a liability in the war. We weren't working with all the facts on how much they knew about our space. Forget going for the Federation's heart. The Civkits are the ones most likely to come after us. Maybe we should capture some of them and find out just what they want. It might be worth the risk of them learning more about us. With this in mind, Grace's claws twitched. Before he turned sad eyes towards me. All of our efforts to hide from the Federation and not draw their attention. They were here before. I wish we'd known this world was important to them. We could have moved. We could have let the Sivkits land and hoped that they'd leave us alone like we did with you.
Except humans were here, I finished. I'm sorry. You could have avoided war if you didn't have to stop them from finding out we survived.
Charisse picked up a ribbon off the ground before also finding what seemed like a bipedal Sivkit figurine. We would have been found by their expedition at end time, and the Krev wouldn't have protected us until recently. We inadvertently landed on one of the most dangerous planets for our kind. It's more than that. More than about humans, Quana growled. Esquo was destroyed to avoid the Federation stumbling across us. That's more likely to happen here, whether it's further away or not. Don't you see? Hundreds of millions died for nothing.
Hold on. Why is that Sivkit statue walking on 2 legs? I demanded. It looks like it's fucking dancing.
That's your focus, not what I said about the Jaslips?
What do you want me to say, Quana? I'm trying to make sense of this. There was no way of knowing the Feddies were so far out of their own turf.
General Radai stepped between the two of us.
There can be multiple concerns at once. Obviously, this clashes with the information we had when making all of our governance decisions for every species. It is a cause of concern. Panicking and infighting will not help us deal with this, or find out why the only remnant is such a decrepit bunker this far underground. There were no signs of past colonizations.
Then how did Mafani know about it? Quana hissed distrustfully.
Well, that's a valid question, and so was the crap about the bipedal bunnies, I offered.
The Rescue General's eyes simmered. Quadrupeds can act bipedal for short times, and sometimes too. Quana can attest to this. There's not much to make of it. As for Mafani, he's been planning this for months. My best guess is that he stumbled across it, looking for places to tunnel or perhaps found a connection into it where we are not aware of. The only way to find out is to catch him. We must gather as much intel as possible.
Getting the Sivkit memory transcript would be invaluable. They might have told us outright.
Gress mused. I wonder what they would have said if we accepted their hail. We will never know. This is why I would have preferred to attempt communications, but my crew were not reasonable. Our policy was to avoid war with the humans when we believed them feds. This wasn't a conflict I wanted. With incomplete information and the blood we must now spill to win.
If I knew the Sivkits had been here before, it wouldn't have been a total surprise when they showed up.
I ran a hand through my scalp in frustration.
But what do they even want here? Why is it a desert world, important to a species that likes grazing in verdant worlds, devouring them?
Trench, did it not occur to you they may have devoured this one? Tellus isn't teeming with local flora.
Of course, sir. You're right. But why would they come back if it's depleted?
I don't know, because your upstart primates forced my wing, thinking you might have the big picture. You should do less thinking and more falling the feck in line.
Understood, General Radai. Forgive my inquiries on past overreach. I'll be following your orders all the way to Mafani, sir.
The Resket leered at me for a few moments longer before stomping off. I pretended not to notice the confusion he failed to disguise. The General was trying to quiet the unrest amongst his own ranks, but he couldn't make heads or tails of our discovery either. Considering the disquiet it had created amongst us, I could imagine what news would stir up in the wider consortium. The words that really sunk their claws into me belonged to Gress, asking what the Sivkits might have said on the hail. What if the conversation could have saved lives, whether by preparing us for the war or for avoiding conflict altogether? I'd hated the Xenos so much that I never gave a second thought to their deaths, until I stumbled across a child's statue. There might have been Sivkit kids, Lekker's age, on those vessels, something that would break Gress to consider. There's that more blood on my conscience beyond just the drill explosion. All I'd ever wanted was to help humanity, but my passion only seemed to aggravate situations. Keeping this cesspool of hatred and hurt under wraps might not last long either. I was not convinced that I could change, or that there was another Taylor Trench deep inside it all. It was a matter of time before I hurt my friends and proved to everyone that I was a terrible, selfish person. How could I ever be good for Gress, even if he was the only positive part of my life? I never deserved his affection, or a second chance at everything I'd done and failed to learn from.
Perhaps General O'Dye was right, that I should do less thinking and more falling in line.
Cherie snickered. Those were actually legitimate questions. When did you grow a lone brain cell, Taylor? Gress, did you donate some?
The Crev moved a claw along his temple, counting on his other paw. Taking inventory? No, seems like all. We came here to do a mission, I snapped. Let's just do it. Mafani is still out there.
What? Oh, I see. Taylor, it wasn't your fault about the zip kits. You weren't the only human desperate to hide yourself, and you hardly started that policy. The Crev wrapped an arm around my shoulder, voice and touch gentle. We've all made mistakes. Look at Esquo. Having the wrong facts about where Jaslips would be safe. Look at me, faking up the deal with the kids. We just have to move on. I'm really proud of you for how you've grown and thought this through.
You are?
Of course I am. Even Charisse was giving you a backhanded compliment. You have more soul and intellect than you give yourself credit for. Use that. Keep asking questions and trying to protect the people you love. You'll get a bit better at it, one day at a time.
I wasn't sure I believed what the Crev was saying, but hearing the conviction in his voice, a part of me wanted to. Having Gress around was why I decided to seek other emotional outlets in the first place. I didn't want to hurt him because I was bleeding deep down. A taut smile forced its way on my face, and I nodded to signal agreement. We were in this together, to protect all of Tellus from Mafani. Whoever this hideout belonged to long ago, that reality hadn't changed. Perhaps following orders and asking questions weren't as mutually exclusive as Radai's verbal beatdown suggested. My hands tightened around my rifle, and our unit pressed deeper into the complex in search of a sadistic rescue. End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon W.R.E, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.